So now that we finally have a real switcher, we're going to do another switching type of video. Wrote down the names of all the freight cars in the yard, cut them into little paper strips, and picked them randomly from a hat. So today we're going to be reviewing the Athearn Genesis Union Pacific MP15AC, and it's my first ever switcher. So let's get started here in the front. Alright, so if you go in the front, on top we have the twin headlights, as well as number boards on sides, this Y1420. There's also these class lights on the side, which actually don't exist in their prototype, so they're just molded in. Then we have the Union Pacific shield logo, pretty nice. And then over here it says UPY1420, which stands for Union Pacific Yards, and there are a different set of numbers for the regular Union Pacific. So UPY1420 and UP1420 are two different locomotives, although that system was only added in the year 2000. Then we have this pretty cool stripe with red and white chevrons, some molded in detailing, some stanchions and railings on the side. Then we have some pilot mounted ditch lights, and there's also holes to the side of it. Then we have an anti-climber with a white stripe, and I was actually surprised on how triangular it is. Then we have these triple hoses here on each side. They're going into these little pockets. And on top there's these tiny green and yellow squares, and a train line hose hanging down. Then we have kind of a shield thing, it's not exactly a plow. And there's also a coupler cut liver, and it's using the standard Athearn McHenry plastic coupler. Alright, so now let's go take a look on the side. So over here we have a tucked in sandfiller hatch, a pair of grab irons, and an etched metal grill which you can actually see through. And in the corner we have the step well, there's 4 steps painted in white, and the middle section is hollow so you can see through it. And there is a printed label saying watch your step here, as well as F for front. The bottom of the stanchion is also detailed, and the sill has this red reflective stripe. We've also got this Blomberg B truck down below, very nicely detailed. And it's especially noticeable on this model, you can see the brake pads on sides of wheels, this go bin in the middle, and a lifting jack pad on top. Some piping going to the air tank, and here's what it looks like in the air. Next we have some molded in detail on top and the side doors. There also is this embedded brake stand in here, and then on top for the lettering it says Union Pacific. There's quite a large gap between the I and the O, and I thought maybe that's just because it's prototypical, but no it's not, and it's not even in their drawing. Then on the sides we have some more warning label stickers. Then we have the lettering for Pacific and some air filter detailing molded in, and down to the bottom we have the air reservoir tank and the fuel tank. There's also detail for the fuel filler cap, the fuel sight glass, and a pipe hanging down. The rear truck looks the same as the front, and there also is this emergency fuel cutoff switch. And in the back there's this black and white label which is actually legible. The front of the cab does have a door right there, as well as some steps leading up to it, and some more printed detailing says there's a fire extinguisher inside. There also is a windshield wiper. Up above we have the sunshade here, cab window, some sealed windows on the sides which are filled in, then UPY, the road number, the website, what locomotive it is, and the UP logo. And here's a closer view of the painted in patches. You can see they do have a jagged edge. Then down below I'm guessing these are the battery boxes. And here's what the back step well looks like. You can see it gets wider at the bottom. Now I'm going to rotate it so you guys can see the back. So the back has several large windows in pairs. There's also windshield wipers. On top we have some twin headlights, some number plates on the sides, those molded in class lights, and a door here in the middle with the labels and some grab irons on the side. And this model comes with a fully detailed interior, so you can see on the inside there's a visible pipe on left, control stand on the right. Here you can see the molded in controls and detailing, and there's actually 2 black seats on the inside. Then on top we have some sandfiller hatches and some etched metal steps to lead up to the cab, which they are see-through. We've also got more of that red and white striping here, and a gangplank sticking out. There's also a top-mounted MU cable receptacle, and some spare knuckle coupler holders on the sides. And then on this side we have this interesting window extension compartment, I guess for more visibility. I had no idea this model was gonna have this. You can see how it looks like normally with the sunshades on the other side. Although if you do look at the prototype, it still has the sunshade even with this attachment. Interestingly enough, Athearn did include this in their official drawing, but for some reason they decided not to add it. The rest of the detail is pretty much the same, although down below we have a spitter valve and an axle generator for the speed recorder, and some nice plumbing detail underneath the sill. Over here we have a ladder, some air filters and grab iron, an electrical cabinet air filter box, a windshield wiper, and there's also this round piece here. I'm guessing it's a cab vent. Then on this side we have Union Pacific lettering. This time it's spaced correctly, and the railing is straight all the way across. Then down the bottom we have the air tank, the fuel tank. There's also this radio gill gauge. I'm guessing that's that. I also found it interesting how they molded in the side door latches. These seem really fine and has some 3-dimension to it. We've also got these tiny little lift rings on the side. There's one in the back and another one in the front. I think that's what came in the baggie. Also in the front there's actually a hanging steel bell underneath, and here's where the engine oil drains. The rest should be pretty much the same as the other side. Now let's go take a look at the roof detail. Unlike a lot of locomotives, the switcher has the radiator in the front. You can see it's a separately applied part, very finely detailed, and the walkways do have treading. In the middle there are 2 exhaust stacks, some molding around it, some hatches in the back, and the stacks are hollow inside. Then we have the cab roof, which is pretty round. Then we have a horn here and a firecracker antenna. There's also seams in the roof. You can see the lines right there, and the front kind of has this hooded roof, and here's what it looks like in the back. Check out the treading detail. Alright, so now let's go check out the bottom. As you can see, the truck is pretty well lubricated. I'm gonna wipe that down later. So basically in American freight railroading there's 3 types of locomotives. So the MP15AC is a switcher. It's used for shunting cars and rail yards, while this much bigger GEVO is a standard mainline locomotive, so it travels on the road across the country. Then this GP38-2 is a road switcher. So it's a combination of the two and can be used for both purposes. So here you can check out the lengths. You can see the size difference between all the different types. Switcher is the smallest. So these are the most common American freight train types. The SD70ACE, GEVO, the SD40-2, although it's really a -3. Then we have a GP38-2 and the MP15AC. Some people say American freight trains all look the same, but as you can see, there is a lot of variety. If you look closer, you can see they're all very different. And I also want to compare it to my Union Pacific SD70M. The Union Pacific armor yellow color is pretty much the same for both of them, as well as the gray part. However, the MP15 has a darker logo, and it seems to be an older design. The sails are also painted in this traditional red scheme, while the SD70M has the modern yellow stripe. The FRA actually mandated in 2005 only yellow or white stripes are allowed. And here's how a typical UP road number would be written as compared to UPY. I also found it interesting they're using different styles of horns, even though they're both Union Pacific. I think it's funny the switcher has a bigger horn than the mainline locomotive, which is much bigger. Now unfortunately the MP15 does not come with sander lines, which is on the prototype, although Athearn says they do include this in this model, so now I'm confused. The SD70M on the other hand does include that detail. So now that we finally have a real switcher, we're going to do another switching type of video. In the past, I've used a GEVO and a SD40-3, but those are not dedicated switchers. So I wrote down the names of all the freight cars in the yard, cut them into little paper strips, put in the hat, and mix them all up, and pick them randomly from a hat. So here is the final order of the train that we're going to assemble. Now obviously I can't fit every single freight car into this track. So you know what that means? I have to delete half of the population, so bye-bye all these guys. Alright, so this is the final consist that we have to assemble. So for the first 3 cars, we have the BNSF, the CMO, the center beam. So these first 2 cars are actually quite close to each other, the BNSF and the CMO hoppers. So I'm thinking putting the BNSF hopper first and the CMO hopper in front of it. Alright, so the first 2 are done. We still have this gray Conrail hopper, which actually does not exist in our consist, so I'm just going to put it on the siding. Next we have the center beam, which is located in the back, but there is some stuff in the way. Next is the red Conrail hopper and the Railgun GNTX. Alright, so after those two, we have the coil shield and the CN boxcar. But there is a tanker in front of the coil shield. Alright, so now I'm going to move on to our last two cars, the Hemet flat car and the TTX boxcar, which are actually in the correct order. With those two done, we have the entire assembled train, finally. Now let's go run it. So for my final thoughts, I think it's a pretty cool model. It's finely detailed, comes with cab interior. The color schemes look great, especially with the red and white chevron stripes, the patches, the small text. The old Union Pacific red sill, the UPY reporting mark is unique. If you need to yard switch, this MP15 is really great for that. It can actually pull quite a lot for its size. Now for the cons, unfortunately, it seems like Athearn slipped on this a bit, and a lot of things don't match their official drawings or announcements, like having the inaccurate gap between the I and the O in Union, missing the sunshade on the side, missing sander lines, and they also have molded in marker lights which actually don't exist in the prototype. I actually checked out the drawings of the other locomotives in this run, and the lettering is actually even more inaccurate and does not reflect the prototypes at all. I feel like that just misses the point of having different road numbers to make them all unique. The release was also a year late, so I'm guessing there were some problems in the factory because of delays, but besides these issues, I still think it's a pretty solid model. It looks great and runs fine. I pre-ordered this from lombardhobby.com, and yeah, we finally have an actual switcher, so you guys can stop bothering me in the comments. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, hit the like button down below, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.